my fear, Misty, is that I think the Zionist state is actually maybe going to get away with it because, as much as I had somebody ask me yesterday if I thought the Europeans were going to turn off their support for Israel, and I said it doesn't matter. It only matters what happens in the U.S. But really, Misty, it only matters what happens in Washington. And Capitol Hill and the White House are effectively Israeli-occupied territory at this point.
Netanyahu recently said, and this is not shocking to anybody who's been paying attention because Israel has never been shy about their intentions. And Netanyahu recently said that Israel would absolutely resume the war. So why do you think this? Because this drives me crazy, Kyle. Why do you think so many people are so willing to just completely overlook that? Oh, if and I can't tell you how often it happens to me on a daily basis. Oh, well, if Hamas would just return the hostages and it would all be over. No, it wouldn't. No, it would not. Right. That's not the plan here. But it seems like everybody's just so willing to overlook that. So what did he say recently? Again, out loud, in the open, in public, that there is no intention of ending this war.
Right. I mean, this is the Israeli position. It's always been the Israeli position. Even when they agreed to a 3-phase ceasefire deal that went into effect on January 19th, the Israeli government was saying we're only going to abide by the first phase of that deal. And then after that, shrug. And then they, paused the ceasefire for 6 weeks, which was phase 1 of the deal. Then they went back to war. I think if Israel does agree to a temporary pause, Misty, it's only going to be so they could clear the rubble which was once the southern city of Gaza, and then they're going to put a bunch of tents there and force first 600,000 Palestinians into the tents, and then the rest of the population of Gaza, and they're going to continue to starve them and their children and terrorize them and drop bombs on those tents until the Palestinians agree to leave. And this has been it's very important to understand, Misty, this has been the plan all along. One of Netanyahu's closest allies, Ron Dermer, he's the strategic affairs minister in Israel. He was actually born in the United States. And apparently this was reported, I want to say in Reuters, that he's a frequent guest at the White House. So he obviously has a lot to say. But right after October 7th, he came up with a plan for how to expel the Palestinians from Gaza. And he notes that the biggest problem is that a third country won't want to take the Palestinians. And of course, whenever this is said in the American press, it's always presented as because the Palestinians are somehow bad people, right? Either they're terrorists, they're all Hamas, or they're agitators, they're just, kind of, I think like some Americans would look at like Mexicans or people, they're just people that you wouldn't want to come into your country. But that's not the case. The reason the Egyptians don't want to take in the Palestinians, the Jordanians don't want to take in the Palestinians, is because the people of those countries would see it as their government facilitating the genocide. Right? If you refuse to take in the Palestinians, if they can't send them out of Gaza, then you're kind of putting up a wall that prevents the genocide of the Palestinians. And so to bypass this problem, Ron Dermer's plan was to make life in Gaza so unlivable, to destroy everything to the point where when you look out at the landscape of Gaza, that people, the Palestinians, will never live there again. Their home, their culture, their land that their families have lived on for centuries is gone. It's been utterly bulldozed. Every last mosque, school, hospital, it is all gone and destroyed. The only thing that exists there is Israeli military bases, and there are people in Rafah, and Israel is going to say, oh, there's a few members of Hamas in there, so we can only send in a little bit of food, and we're only going to allow in a few aid agencies to have their doctors in there and things like that, right? They're going to make it literally the worst place on earth to be, where children are dropping dead, and parents are going to be given the choice to continue to live in a place where they could possibly be shot and killed at any moment, bomb dropped on their head at any moment, where there's never a future prospect of a job, their children getting an education, being able to go see a doctor, right? All that is completely gone, and that the Palestinians are so beaten and broken that they finally agree to leave their homeland. That is the option that Israel is trying to inflict on the Palestinians in the Arab world, and it's intentional, and it's been going on since October 7th.
Yeah, and it's infuriating to watch play out, and watching the way that people have been able to, and that's what I think is so. I think there, if we're going to look for a silver lining, which listen is not usually in my nature, I'm usually very cynical and pessimistic. But if there is a little bit of a silver lining, I think that this is no question the end of Zionism. I think that I don't think you can continue past this. You know what I'm saying? Like it's um, uh, too many people have seen it now. And prior to this, I think, and you and I may have discussed this before, but prior to this, I think Israel had a really good lock. The Zionists had a really good lock on the narrative, and you weren't really, we didn't really get to see it. But now, and a lot of it is, I mean, social media is a cesspool, but a lot of it is because of social media. People are live streaming what's happening in real time. And so there is no real, I mean, obviously you can still control the narrative, but things can get out. And I think that the public consciousness, that there's been a shift. You can feel it happening. There's been an absolute shift in the attitudes towards Zionism in general and Israel as a byproxy. But yeah, I think that that's if we're going to look for any kind of, I don't know if it's going to be enough to save Palestine. Probably not. I'm sorry to say that out loud, but I just as a realist, probably not.
Yeah.
As Kyle just mentioned, I mean, it's not looking good. But I do think,
And they're doing it in the West Bank too, Misty. I mean,
yes.
Obviously there's I understand, and a lot of people I think have genocide fatigue at this point where you can't look at the pitch, like, especially for me, like the pictures of the starving children, it makes me sick. I hate it so much. Right. And that it's so telling. I'm sure you saw the clip of Matt Blumenthal asking Randy Fine about his support for killing kids and starving kids, and how he doesn't even flinch, right? Like he knows this is going on, and I can't think of it without like it makes me mad, but it also makes me ill and just sad that this is happening with our tax dollars. And so I guess my fear, Misty, is that I think the Zionist state is actually maybe going to get away with it because as much as I had somebody ask me yesterday if I thought the Europeans were going to turn off their support for Israel. And I said, it doesn't matter. It only matters what happens in the U.S. But really, Misty, it only matters what happens in Washington. And Capitol Hill and the White House are effectively Israeli occupied territory at this point. And if you look at Congress right now, I think probably the most frequent way that somebody loses their seat is either like a chronic illness or they actually die. The people don't get voted out of office. Randy Fine will probably be in that seat until he has a heart attack. And that means that we have like some crazy ultra Zionist who literally supports the killing of Palestinian children, permanently occupying one of the 400 and something seats in the House of Representatives, right? But this is the consensus. Even Nancy Pelosi, who's from liberal San Francisco, has always said, that Israel is even more important than Washington. Like if the Capitol is gone tomorrow, I think she said our support for Israel will still stand. Ted Cruz, he's a senator from Texas. His most important mission, his self-stated in the Senate, isn't helping the people of Texas, which you would think every politician would say, helping my constituents is my number one priority. He says, my number one priority is supporting the state of Israel. Like these people are just absolutely insane lunatics. I think once actually had kind of intelligent people that ran this country, Misty. And now if you look at them, they're all paranoid. They're all insane. The foreign policy debate in this country should be the debates that we see on Judge Napolitano between himself and John Mearsheimer if we need to confront China one day. But the debate is between, the people who want to go to war with China versus the people who want to try to go to war with the entire globe. Russia, Iran, Venezuela, China, North Korea, they want war absolutely everywhere. They're absolutely insane. And they represent the American center, the foreign policy consensus.
Yeah, that's what's terrifying is the consensus. And it's so just broadly accepted. And I'm not even sure really if it's accepted in the United States or if people just don't. I mean, you mentioned fatigue. I think some people do have some of that, like war fatigue and like the constant conflict. So there's maybe some of that. I think the vast majority of people just don't have time to pay attention. Like most people don't, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, like, oh my God, they're so dumb. I think people are working 2 or 3 jobs and have to take, Billy to soccer practice and, Anna to softball or whatever, and they don't have time to pay attention to all this stuff. And so they're just completely unaware. But it's, I mean, it's crazy to me how easily they're able to get away with it, as you just mentioned. And it's, see, there I was trying to be positive for once, Kyle, and you shot me down.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks a lot. That's a role reversal right there. Usually I'm the negative one. But I mean, as you just mentioned, they're starving the children. There's the UNRWA report, the UNRWA, 1 in 10 Palestinian children are malnourished. And I think that's gotta, I mean, honestly, it has to be higher than that. I can't imagine it not being, I mean, I don't know what how they measure that, but it's, what they're doing in terms of starving children is so disturbing to me on every level. And again, the idea that it's happening out loud in the open, live streamed to everybody daily, and it just continues is really discouraging. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's really sad. So
hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Oxnard, California, Rutherford, New Jersey, New York, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.